We'll start again. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our BDM Sunday webinar. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. And as many of you know, one of the goals of BDM is not simply to help people earn more money. Our goal is to help people become the kind of person who is capable of creating a better life in every area, financially, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. One thing I noticed over the years is that many of the people who go on to make the greatest impact in the world rarely travel an easy road. In fact, it often seems that the greater the calling, the greater the preparation. Think about Joseph being sold into slavery before becoming a ruler. Think about David hiding in caves before becoming king. Think about Job losing everything before his restoration. Time and time again, we see people being tested, refined, and strengthened before stepping into their greater purpose. Most of us would prefer to skip the difficult parts of the journey. We want the victory without the struggle, the success without the setbacks, and the harvest without the season of planting and waiting. But what if the challenges we're facing are not obstacles at all? What if they're preparation? What if the very things we wish would disappear are the tools being used to develop the wisdom, character, faith, and perseverance needed for the next chapter of our lives? Well, tonight's presentation explores that idea. The title of the video is Why God Keeps Sending His Best Business People Through Hell First. Whether you agree with every point or not, I encourage you to listen with an open mind and ask yourself an important question. What might God be teaching you through the challenges you've faced? Because sometimes our greatest setbacks become the foundation of our greatest breakthroughs. Let's watch the video together.
My name is Byron Rogers. I'm really just a lifelong protector, a little boy from the Bahamas who's just trying to find his way, and God's really guided me on that path. Handful of explosions, been blown up a handful of times, out-of-body experiences, got to pray for my life back.
What is the most disturbing thing you've seen behind closed doors that made you think there really is a dark and evil and sinister agenda?
Watching the business of the gospel was something that was very difficult for me. I've seen ministers shove offering envelopes in their pocket saying, I deserve this.
What's your view of spiritual warfare for the kingdom-minded citizen?
You're giving your life away for this demonic trade versus time for money. What is your Monday through Friday? That's the best of your week. Nothing will bring you closer to destruction than comfort. The deepest sorrow I've ever felt in my life just kind of exploded from my solar plexus and started to just engulf me in the realization that I'm dead. Father, I may never be everything you've called me to be. I may never be everything you've called me to be, but if you give me another chance, if you send me back, I promise you I will go so hard at life.
Why do so many of us not take action on the dreams God put in our heart?
We don't know who we are because we don't know whose we are.
We just got hit with this Epstein thing everyone's talking about. 3.5 million pages. We okay on this topic?
Full send. Thank you for having me here, Apostle Dan. My name is Byron Rogers. I'm really just a lifelong protector, a little boy from the Bahamas who's just trying to find his way, and God's really guided me on that path through the Marine Corps and infantry, 2 deployments to Iraq, handful of explosions, been blown up a handful of times, out-of-body experiences, got to pray for my life back, got another chance, and so I promised God I was going to go as hard as I could. He blessed me into the executive protection industry. I say that deliberately because I'm only here because I heard his voice while I was praying, and I was instantaneously elevated to some of the highest levels in the industry when I was only 21 years old in 2008. So I've had 2 jobs, combat and protecting ultra high net worth people all over the spectrum of the executive protection client demographic. I've operated in over 80 countries at this point. During that time, much of who we protect now is faith-based VIPs and corporate professionals and ultra-high net worth families primarily. I got knighted last year, so I'm a Knight of Malta, which was an absolute honor. I've got wrote a book called Finding Meaning After the Military for veterans in transition dealing with what they like to call PTSD. I've got some other names for it. You know, I have a master's in psychology, forensic psychology, and also an honorary doctorate in Christian business and leadership. All in all, I'm just a man of God, trying to be a modern man of God and executing on Christian kingdom initiatives during my time left on this earth. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to our Goshen studios. I am so honored to be sat here with you, brother. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your life with us today.
Yes, sir.
This is a blessing. So, quick bio, short bio on Sir Byron Rogers. He's the founder and CEO of Bravo Research Group, an elite executive protection and security services firm. He's a former U.S. Marine Corps infantry squad leader with combat deployments to Iraq. And he spent over 15 years operating high-level protection environments in around 80-plus countries, providing security and leadership for some very high-profile individuals and organizations. So we're so thrilled to have Sir Byron in the studio today. Thanks again. This is exciting. I got so many things I want to ask you about today.
Let's go. It's an honor to be here.
So I understand, Mr. Byron, that you have been protecting people in some, and been present in some rooms where you've seen money and wealth of millionaires and billionaires large enough, strong enough to be a part of what shifts nations. What is the most disturbing thing you've seen behind closed doors that made you think there really is a dark and evil and sinister agenda? I went deep early, didn't I?
Yeah, you know, I had another. My initial thought came up, and then I think the one that I'm supposed to share the most came up. Yes, I've seen. You know, I've seen horrible things in non-permissive environments. I've seen the power of poverty. I've seen people do voodoo ceremonies before getting ready to attack us. You know, the next morning when we're outnumbered 70 to 5 or 4 guys and cut off from government support. And those things were intense. But I would say, to speak directly to what you're dealing with, you know, some of the most vexing things I'd ever seen is I've been traveling in the faith-based arenas of the world at some of the highest levels for close to 2 decades, as I mentioned, and watching the business of the gospel was something that was very difficult for me. And getting to see how different ministers handled that as I traveled globally and internationally with some of the largest ministries in the world was always quite vexing, and the game behind that. And I understand it takes money to be potent and to project power when it comes to the dealings we have here on this planet. But the business of it, when it's not used properly, when it's not submitted to the kingdom and business for the sake of mammon, was some of the most heartbreaking things. I've seen ministers shove offering envelopes in their pocket inside of a vehicle, you know, saying, I deserve this, you know, I deserve this. I've seen the good ones, though, take microphones out of supposed pastors' hands during offering as well, on stage in front of the congregation, because they were of the wrong spirit, you know. So there's obviously and always a battle going on. You know, I've seen ministers talk about the Ferrari anointing that that is in the building, and if you give enough right now, you'll get a Ferrari
and bring it in on stage.
And so I would say the war between the real gospel and the spirit of mammon that has really, as you run a business, can so easily sneak into the operations of a church or a global organization for the ministry. That's always reminded me that Satan's there, seeking whom he may devour.
Yes, very much so. I want to be able to touch on a few different areas in terms of economies and the political environment. There's a lot of our audience there. They're building businesses and learning so much about spiritual warfare and the battle. So to take a kind of big bird's eye view, you've been to like over 80 countries. Is spiritual warfare, is it more intense in other countries than it is in the States, or is it just more hidden here? What's your view of spiritual warfare for the kingdom-minded citizen, like globally?
Yeah, I would say that it's very different. In the United States,
Really?
we have, and this is something I came in contact with just last week on a college campus with another one of our clients, and there's this lukewarm passivity, this lack of ability to step in with this generation that's been dealing with all the social, they're less comfortable socially because they're just less grounded maybe in who they are. You don't have to figure out who you are, but so here we have this comfort that leads to this lukewarmness. And I felt the Spirit of God in me, literally, as I watched these kids get asked questions that they should have just fired back instantly. We killing babies or no, or save the babies? And no one wants to answer the question. There's this lukewarm comfortableness. Miles Monroe, I sat with him before he died in a meeting with a client, and he said, nothing will kill you or bring you closer to destruction than comfort. Nothing will bring you closer to destruction than comfort.
That's a good word. Can you say that again?
Yeah, nothing will bring you closer to destruction than comfort. And that's from the late Miles Monroe. God bless you. We love you. Much love and respect. Yeah, we both from the Bahamas, so there's that thing. But
Same.
No,
London.
London. You never know. But yeah, when I look at these people that are so passive and so comfortable,
Yes.
and I think about the idols that exist in their lives, and I think about if God showed up right now and asked them to do something for the kingdom of heaven rather than the systems of this world, their first question is going to be my 401k and how am I going to make ends meet, and what's my wife going to say, and like all these different, right, exactly, and because they haven't even realized how ingrained and owned they are by the matrix. And your 9 to 5, what is that? The best of your day. What is your Monday through Friday? That's the best of your week. You're giving your life away for this demonic trade versus time for money, right? And so this spiritual warfare here looks very different, but it's so dangerous and deadly because it looks so safe and secure.
Oh, you said it.
And so that's what breaks my heart about things when I'm stateside. They're still over here trying to figure out if the rapture is going to come before the tribulation. And I've got people around the world right now dying every single day, probably not even having this conversation. They just want to know how they can get a Bible, right? With dead family members that have already died, that already have their white robes in heaven. So
my goodness,
I sit here, and then when I go overseas, you see this more overt spirituality. You see what we would consider to be more overt demonic influence. I've seen 4-legged midgets. Well, I saw a 4-legged midget that there was witchcraft so deep in this environment that I saw this, and I've seen zombies. I've seen things in other countries that were signs and fruit of the demonic principalities coming from the spirit realm into the physical. In certain other countries like Haiti, for example, the darkness is darker at nighttime. Fear is a currency, right? When those who practice voodoo, they start doing their thing. You can feel it. The atmosphere changes. But when you pray, right, and when you know who you are, like when we've deployed overseas to environments like this, we have a prayer team backing us up. And so you see the overt nature of the demonic overseas much more pronounced. However, the reality is that both are much more. I think it was like Apostle Izzy said, what are you going to do? You're going to call the doctor? You can't call the doctor. There's no doctor out here. Either God heals the kid who broke his leg, or he's going home with a broken leg, and so... we were in a service with the Zulus, with the Zulu nation in Africa, and the power went off. And, me and my U.S. team were kind of like getting our flashlights, getting ready to evacuate the principal. No one on the stage moves. To them, The lights were only working for us anyways. They turned the AC on because the Americans were coming.
Yes.
No one moves. They continue praise and worship. And without the instruments, the sound that came from these people's hearts
was pure.
We felt like we were going to get raptured in real time.
Beautiful.
And so I see overseas a more overt. The spirit realm is much more palpable because it's all they have. And here in the United States, the systems and the processes of being so developed have lulled us into what I think is probably an even more demonic trap, which is passivity and lukewarmness. And Christ says he's going to spit you out with that. I'll take an enemy that's has a deep level of conviction that the guys that we convert that have backgrounds doing, dirty deeds for cheap on the streets. They're some of the the strongest disciples in the group, whereas if I take someone from Pleasantville who's a knight in shining armor, whose metal's never been tested, we still have to do a lot of things to help him figure out who he is and who God is, because he's never seen him in the multidimensional nature that you get to see when you're being challenged.
Yes. Okay, so what about leadership in organizations? And I want to ask you about leadership because you've fought wars, you do high level, elite level protection, and you have operated in chaotic environments. And a lot of us that look at a guy like you, we think, I'm trying to make sure the printer is in. I'm going to mail a package this afternoon.
Right.
We're going to hire someone. I don't feel good about that because the last 3 hires didn't work or something. And I got to get an oil change. And and I'm trying to, and you're looking at your to-do list that's not getting done. And yet military-minded, high, and operating in you have a high capacity for risk and stress. So from a leadership standpoint, in your experience and the people that you've served alongside, what needs to happen for someone to be able to lead their life well? And where do they get the systems and the operational frameworks and the organization to bring order in chaos or function in chaos? How do you even begin thinking about that?
I love this question because we run training, right? Like one of my companies is we train people to be professional protectors. And we take, sometimes it's a guy that's been working at Starbucks and he's just like, I just want to do more. Like I'm a man, I want to protect.
Yes.
I've always protected people since I was on the playground. I want to be a professional protector. And I will also say our civilians do, like sometimes they're some of the best guys because they come to us with no ego, right? And so we're able to really, really mold them because they don't already know everything. But where I would start with that is I would start with, and this is so interesting because there's parallels here, I would start with training the nervous system because that's the real difference in human beings that I've found is the nervous system of a man and the spiritual nervous system as well, because if something happens in this room right now, if a man breaks in behind me with a firearm, I'm going straight into prioritize and execute. And I'm just running that program, rinse and repeat, find work, prioritize, execute, start the breathing, stop the bleeding, protect the wound, treat for shock afterwards once I get done, find help, communicate. And so that all has to do, you may have a guy who's a great shooter on a range, on a square range,
Sure.
but the second we introduce stress, who are you, right? And so many humans go through life not knowing anything about who they are under stress, and their nervous systems are just not designed for that. Now, what is really interesting, so when I introduce stress to somebody, they get to know who they are, we get to know who they are, and I want to build your nervous system. And this is what the Marine Corps does really, really well, is they're just like, you're going to be in non-standard problem-solving mode with high stakes for the next 10 months. And if you mess up, we're going to kill him in front of you. And if he messes up, maybe we'll kill all of you. But this is just going to suck. And your nervous system's they're going to redesign you as a man who can sit with pain, with struggle, and you can suffer well. And it's turned out to be one of the most amazing educations I've ever gotten.
That's amazing. That line alone. sit as a man with
Yes.
pain and
Yes.
struggle
Yes.
and start thinking.
100%.
Get yourself together.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
And it's the whole game. When I was
that.
going through my psych education, I'm getting my master's in psych, and my teachers are like, well, you need to find out like where these feelings come from, and you need to really deal with these feelings. I'm like, these feelings. And they hated me. I was professional, I was godly, but we had conversations, and I was like, these feelings. They're like, okay, Byron, what do you do with your feelings? I'm like, if I encounter an equation, a lot of times I don't even look at it as a problem. I pause my feelings. I become productive. Progress equals happiness. Once I know what God wants me to do and I start to execute, then I'll check back in with my feelings. Like if we walk into a room and we take damage and a guy falls, I need to kill that man. Then I need to figure out make sure the environment's clear, and then I go into medical mode. But the parallel that I think is really interesting is that spiritually this also exists, right?
Oh,
and so
yes. This is
when we
good.
look at a man, which is what we're always trying to develop in my company, is I need men that are warriors in the physical and the spiritual. So when I look at this man, how does he deal with stress in the physical? This has everything to do with his spiritual root system at the same time. Does he know who God is in the struggle? Has he met the different dimensions of God that come from being in the desert and in the wilderness? And when I went through my last wilderness time, it was like a year and a half of him continuing to manna from heaven. I need 70K by Monday, or else this is how I end, Father. And he taught me to just be as steady as I would be if I was in a firefight until I die. I don't care how bad it gets in the fight. Until I die, I will continue to prioritize and execute. And it was the same thing in the spirit. And it was like, Father, I have this Goliath is showing up. And he's like, just keep your eyes on me, keep the right heart posture, and I will continue to show you who I am in the belly of the beast. And so I got to make that connection that I need to be this same type of person in both of these realms. And now things show. My wife's like, how are you not freaking out? Which my wife's amazing. I couldn't do
met
this
your
without
wife. She's
without
a good,
her.
godly woman. She's
Right.
powerhouse.
No, thank you. But yeah, like and I got to a place where anything could happen. And I was just like, I just know who my Father is. And so when I'm thinking about
Foundations.
Yeah. And so when I'm thinking about being an executive and the intersection between how the military training of training your nervous system to actually deal with stress, be at home in stress, stay the right word would be stay sober-minded in the middle of the stress and not let it in the boat. It's the water that gets in the boat that sinks the boat, and continue making decisions until you get to the end of that or die, which is both outcomes are fine, depending on what you're fighting for, is the same in the spirit realm. And so as I'm building a kingdom company, I need gentlemen that are developed both spiritually and intellectually, or with competence, and in some cases physically. And so when we have both of those things, because if you are spiritual immaturity is spiritual liability as far as I'm concerned. And though I know where everyone is at to the best of my ability, and there's grace and there's leading in those things, I'm constantly gauging both. And so when I'm having a conversation with one of my directors or employees, I'm understanding their problem, I'm understanding their person, but I'm also understanding, what's this coming from? Is this coming from a place of, is this a conversation that has to do with spiritual things they're dealing with? Are they dealing with some sticking points because of their spiritual maturity? Or are they dealing with sticking points because I need to provide them with better systems and leadership? And so that's the ongoing conversation. And if you have a kingdom business, you really need to be aware of where that feedback or challenge or whatever's coming from, because there are a lot of things the kingdom of darkness is going to do to try to steer you off the path.
Oh, yeah.
Did I answer that question?
You did, yeah.
I'm a long answer guy, so just tell me if I need.
No,
am I doing it right here?
all in.
Okay,
I just had a master's degree program in what I do with my nervous system and the emotion. Check back in later, run the script. Focus on the Lord. Go.
Yeah, and I would say, when we talk in our men's group about protocols and lifestyle, to consistently live a life that puts you in a position where your nervous system is being shocked. You are doing that. Well, this is the entrepreneurial life on one hand.
Yes.
But your nervous system is being shocked. This is why the gym is so important. This is why building consecration into every aspect of your life is so important. When you're constantly in that place of chastity around your food, your thoughts, the way you speak, the way you do business, the way you do these things, you're creating this protection around you.
Yes.
And in the physical, when we're constantly going to the range, hitting the mats, banging on our body, when something challenges us, I'm not guessing about my capabilities. I have a deep understanding. Arrogance is inaccurate confidence. We want to have confidence. Confidence is calm because it's a knowing of what I can do. I moved a few thousand pounds this morning. I can fire a gun at this race and this pace. I already understand what I can do. And in the spirit,
Beautiful.
This is what challenge does to your spiritual nervous system. So the situation doesn't reveal the man. The situation both reveals the man and makes him. And so when we step into these things, when I look at someone's spiritual nervous system, what comes out of their mouth, the heart speaks. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Do you know your Father? You know, where have you been every morning, if not in His presence? And why are you afraid? Are you afraid because we have now found the one problem in the world that's greater than your Father in heaven? You know, this is the way that I think. But of course, the Holy Spirit guides me to deliver it to people in such a way that's edifying.
What a great word to every single kingdom listener. What a great word. Whatever situation you're dealing with, whatever you're in, it like put that difficulty to use for training, for development.
Oh, it's the best.
And then just get stronger and stronger. And I love what you said, the chastity, the measured, careful stewardship of every single area, faith, family, finance, every area. What a beautiful word for everyone listening to our program.
It's an honor.
And so I love what you've shared. Just to go deep and dark again. I mean, what?
That's where I live.
It's yes. We just got hit with this Epstein thing everyone's talking about. 3.5 million pages. We okay on this topic?
Full send. I'm here for the violence.
And you know, I found not everyone, but so many people are asking, like, how did this go on so long? And more I listened to that question, I thought to myself, why are we asking, how did this go on so long? Isn't more the question, like, let us now converse with one another and realize this has always been going on so long. Why are we so passive and quiet about it? And I go online and I'm like, I can't easily find many churches speaking to the current issues of the day. And I don't want to get into like crazy UFO, theories and just like get distracted from the gospel. But can we please let the lion of the gospel roar against the atrocity of? I mean, there's vampires out there drinking children's blood.
Yeah.
Can we please inform ourselves? And by the way, while we're at it, can we shut down some of those demonic industries? What have you seen? And tell me everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've been so blessed in the places God's had me walk, because we've all in this industry, we trade stories and guys have seen things and we've known about these things for a long time. I've had clients that have gone to the School of Mysteries, and I've had to take them to school and sit there and try to understand what's going on. And, I think what's really interesting about this time is that it's the reality that, we're living in a time where it's finally common knowledge. It's finally hit the gen pop, right? It's finally out there and it's been revealed. And for me, I mean, can you imagine what it's like being the type of guy that knows what the types of things that go on around behind closed doors, and then watching all the normies go to Starbucks and like you can tell them they're just gonna not believe you and think you're crazy, because they were given an intellectual shortcut called being a conspiracy theorist, right? So they're just like, well, he's a conspiracy theorist. And then they stop thinking, right? Yes. And they never do any research, right? And so for me, I think this is an amazing time where we see the revelation of the principalities and powers that are really, really ruling the world.
Yep.
And I believe it's also a really awesome time for people to really look at the reality of the kingdom of heaven versus the system of the world. And the system of the world is charging you to breathe in certain zip codes and drink water and to do everything, to do everything. You got Pharmacia that's only treating the itis in 90% of everything that they're doing. God, you know, itis, this is inflammation of, this is a response to a deeper etiology and a deeper sickness. They're not trying to heal you. They're monetizing everything.
And petrochemicals pushing you into a diabetic state.
100%.
Running you on the Pharmacia mill.
Right. For what? For the spirit of mammon, money, everything. And so God gave us this beautiful world, this beautiful planet that was free. The $1 million idea that you're going to have as an entrepreneur this year is going to be free. You know, the air in your lungs, which is arguably one of the most valuable things you have, is free. We sit on trillions of different systems that are working synergistically right now in this room so that we can have this sentient experience on a rock that's moving arguably a few thousand miles, 50, 60,000 miles through space. All of this is free and is the gift of a loving God. And now we're starting to realize that if we eat organic, if we eat one ingredient foods, if as close as we can eat to the things God gave us, the better off our health will be. Right. And so in a way, I say science is man's unconscious endeavor to understand the mind of God. Because every time they understand something, they get a little closer to understanding what we know. And so when I look at the system of this world and I look at the structures that have been built, and I hear the Bible say we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and rulers in these dark and high places. To me, it's no surprise, but I think it's a time now when we can start looking at the world and even the people in between that don't know any better but are turned off by paying taxes to people that eat babies, and say, maybe now it's time to build a parallel society. Maybe now it's time not to go and buy things and lean into this demonic agenda that is anti-humanist in nature. Your food's poisoning you right now because it must be fiscally responsible. The fruit is got to last on the shelves, and that's more important than it not killing you. So it's got products on it that are killing you because that business is its root system is in the system of this world and the spirit of mammon, and it's an anti-humanist agenda. That's why everything that comes out of that system is killing you. And so I think now is a time of a great awakening for people to start saying, well, geez, like what's my farmer's market, food look like? What if we created a parallel organization to the demonic organizations that have had us enslaved for all these years? Is there a Christian Amazon that I can start working with? Might not be as good at first, but if a lot of us get on there and they get funding, is there a Christian, these other alternative aspects? And all we're really talking about is the kingdom of heaven on earth starting to become more and more real and physical, and kingdom entrepreneurs creating a parallel society that's going to thrive more than the demonic society, because it's actually going to be driven by the Spirit of God, which is actually the most loving, is love. And so if we can start to think about, you know what, I'm going to step out of as many things as I can in this demonic matrix and push my funding and my resources and my inventions and my time and my energy over to this other category, we could find ourselves in a place where the kingdom of heaven on earth happens even faster as a result of the shock to the system of reality that most people are being introduced to. And
you just gave the best strategy ever to every business-minded, kingdom-minded listener. You just gave us this insight into how to generate tremendous wealth by providing these solutions. We're going to need it. We're going to need healthy eating. We're going to need like holistic solutions.
100%.
And then even earlier on, you gave us frameworks for counselor, kingdom psychology. People are going to need to learn how to think.
Absolutely. And can I add to that?
Yes.
And what I would add to it is the warning and the reality of what I saw when I was traveling with these churches, which is just simply, you may start off good. You may start off with good intentions, but along the way, you're going to have options. Along the way, when it starts to work, you will get approached, and I have been approached, and you'll have the opportunity to sell what God's doing in your life into that system, or to be acquired by that system. And at that time, in that day, in that moment, if you are not grounded in Christ, you'll make the wrong decision, and you will end up letting your life's work, the gift God's given you, and everything that he's walked you through become an asset for the kingdom of darkness. And may God deal with you gracefully. May God make the righteous decision with you when and if you do that, because he'll give you prosperity. And when I was going through my desert time, I remember being like, God, how come all these people are out here prospering and I'm going through this hard time? Like, I'm good. Like, I'm not good. My righteousness is a filthy rags, but I'm better than, freaking life coach guy driving up in a Lamborghini. I don't know if I'm better, but like, what? You're prospering these guys.
Yes.
When I'm over here giving my life for you, my brand. Everyone know I'm a Christian guy. I represent you. You're Jehovah Nissi. Like, I'm in the marketplace representing you. How come I'm struggling and over here and all this? And I need a miracle by Monday or I die again. And he's and what I felt God say to me in that moment is he's like, the desert is designed to clean out your root system. The desert is designed to build you so that you might last through success. Success is so much more dangerous than the desert time. In the desert time, your shoes are growing on your feet. You got a pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day, and you're out there and God's with you, and you're eating manna from heaven. Like you're surviving. You don't even know how you're surviving, but he's getting you through, and he's close, and it's awesome. When you eat and are satisfied, be careful not to forget about the Lord your God, because what happens is, if your root system isn't completely, if you haven't gone through the full training battery, if you found a shortcut, if you did these things, when the burden of the blessing comes, not only will you struggle with the systems to be able to maintain and steward it well, but you will turn the blessings of God into an idol, and you'll be trapped in hustle mode as a Christian CEO of a company. You will make your business your new idol. You will not be able to pump the brakes and set aside the holy portions of what God, the holy portions of what you should in order to consecrate your business. You won't be able to do the things that make sure that your business, that your priesthood is driving your kingship and your stewardship. That will become an idol, and that will be how you fall, and you'll get owned by the kingdom of darkness. And so he said, you need the desert time. Let these struggles do the work they need to do so that you can make it through the blessing. He said Satan can bless anyone, because all a normal person is going to do is they're going to feed their natural nature. And wisdom, riches is an amplifier. And so you need the time to burn these things out so that you can survive prosperity.
Right. What a word of wisdom. So what about in your personal life? Have you experienced, all right, I got to back up. First of all, wow. I was right there with Abraham as you were sharing that. King of Salem. Good news. But hold on, another offer, King of Sodom.
Hey.
Always two kings, and you just said it. You increase, you grow in responsibility, grow in wealth. There's always another offer that comes along, and it's couched in all kinds of seemingly good things. I love this. So on this theme, going more personal into your life, did you find as your business grew, your responsibility grew, this whole mandate, this assignment on your life, did you find yourself getting pulled into hustle culture or like the strain, a heavier and heavier intensity of, and I mean where you're doing good things and your heart is full for the pleasure of God, but something is starting to spread, you're thin. And did you find that exhausting toil, times of breaking, struggle, family, like marriage, did the growth of your godly responsibilities start to break you?
This is such a good question. I've grappled with this with some other young entrepreneurs I've spoken with. I love this question. So I would say twofold, right? There's a dichotomy there. There's a realistic promotion in the spirit, walking into new mantles and times and seasons. there's a time of surrender, and I want to say it. I'll say it like this: growth of capacity that is required. And so submitting to the rigor of your capacity being grown and developed and fortified is so necessary. And all Christ is asking is death, right? This is, death is the language of God. Sacrifice is the language of God, right? I ran into some trouble the other day, and, one of my, right hand was like, why didn't this affect you? And I said, well, I think I'm just too dead inside for this to bother me. And they were kind of like vexed, like this is a bad thing. And I was like, no, this is freedom. This is how we move through things. One of my buddies, Stephen Prowse, he says, die faster, live longer, live freer, And so there's a very important breaking, and there's a very important capacity building stage you must go through when you start a task because you think it's sexy, and then you get in there and you're like, this is what it's really going to take. Right. I think this is what it's really going to take.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I'll ever get there. Well, then now we're asking the real question, why are you really doing it? Right. And until you really find that zone where you're like, I'm willing to run for this, when the distance, I can sprint an unknown distance for this because this is what God's called me to do. That's where you really want to be. And it takes time. I don't know if we are developed or mature enough to know that from the beginning. It's something that you almost you find yourself in after you've tried and failed and get broken and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then you're like, this is who God's been creating the whole time. I failed at a number of different businesses until I finally hit that zone. And then I look back at those failures, and it's like sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Those are the best things that ever happened. They may be so dangerous for this where I'm at right now.
Right.
So it's such a beautiful thing in knowing you're in God's hands the entire time. So on the one hand, it's the capacity I never walk away from struggle because it's hard. I thank God for the struggle. I know I'm honored by my adversaries. I think Godzilla shows up. I cannot wait to see how God. I'm flattered. You're honored by your adversaries, right? Like what the cross represented to Christ, David represented in the David and Goliath story. If you look at every man of God, the level of his challenge, this is the real compliment, where the world gets to see who your God is if you're able to just sit there and be a vessel, stay in alignment, and just move, right? And so I love it when I see I'm being hammered on. And this is how I become something the world has never. This is how we become, by the grace of God, something the world has never seen before.
Beautiful.
But on the other side of it, if it can take an unhealthy turn, and then it can become an identity piece that it shouldn't be, and it can become an idol, and it can become where you think your strength is coming from.
Yes.
And this is the very danger, and I've struggled with that. Because Corinthians 15:10, by the grace of God, I am what I am. But that grace was not given to me in vain because I went harder than them all, right? And then you hear Paul reel himself back in. He's like, yet not by my strength. but this is what's tattooed on my back. I had a 12-hour tattoo of this. And so my personality and the way God's designed me is I wake up at 3:30 a.m. I go to bed at 11 every single night because it's time to go. And that has to do with getting blown up in Iraq and getting a chance to do this life again and having an out-of-body experience. But the point should be made that if, in fact, and I'll set it like this, if, in fact, as your promotion grows, and I have to give credit, Apostle Issy, this was her again.
Yes.
If, in fact, your consecration does not grow with your promotion, if, in fact, your consecration is not leading you on this journey of development,
then you're in trouble.
Then you fall, and then it becomes your hustle becomes an identity.
Yeah.
You start to believe that things won't go well unless you do these things.
Yeah.
And the reality is, apart from God, you can do nothing. And once that becomes an idol, you're just on path to learn some hard lessons.
Yeah. You got blown up.
Oh yeah.
And I heard you say you had an out of body experience. What happened?
So this is the moment that I feel like I was reborn in life in Iraq. I've been in 6 total blasts, 5 IEDs, and
just for our listener, what's 5 IDs?
IEDs, improvised explosive device. So, 5 different times I was in
improvised
explosive device.
IED.
Homemade bombs.
Yep. Thanks for explaining.
The Iraqis would find munitions like 155 anti-tank shells that are designed to blow up tanks. And
Okay.
They would make different types of explosives, and they just blow us up while we're driving around because they can't really fight us. So they would surprise us with IEDs.
So
with
they
bombs.
they'd use what they found, and they would home make it, and they'd set it in the road, ready
Bury
for
it
you.
under the road. Yeah, one of them was a motorcycle. And we're turning a corner, and I'm like, who would just leave a motorcycle in the middle of the street? I'm like, do they not have thieves around here? And then I notice the pile, the mound, and then I see the shock tube and or det cord, and then by the grace of God, I'm waking up. This was the last. One of them was a mortar attack, but anyways, this was the last and most.
And a mortar
intense.
attack is from the air.
From the air,
Okay.
yeah. And that, I'll briefly tell you that story. That was just the grace of God. I have passed the line of departure in my life where I get to believe that I'm here because I'm so cool or tough or I have cool tattoos. There is none of that exists. The only reason I'm here is by the grace of God. I'm going, I get back from a mission, take off my body armor. I created a little gym in my little area in the middle of the sand out of sandbags and made a pull-up bar, and it was super cool. And, I got my rifle with me, and I'm going to go do some pull-ups and get a workout in before our next op. One of my Mexican buddies runs in. He's like, "Yo, Ryers, I got to tell you a story. I got to tell you a story." And I'm like, "No, it was a joke. Let me tell you a joke." And I'm like, "Bro, I only got this much time till our next mission. I got to get my workout in. I'm going to work out." He's like, "No." And he grabs me, and I'm like, the Marine Corps is like juvie, okay? Like there's different rules. It's man law. So he grabs me and he stops me and he's like, "No, I got to tell you this joke. And I'm like, "Bro, I've been on deployment with you for months. I've heard all your jokes. Like this,
Yes.
There's no joke that's funny enough to mess up my workout. I'm gone." And he grabs me, he stops me, and he keeps yanking on me. He's like, "No, Ryers, you got to hear this joke. And this guy's not even in my platoon. Like he isn't even supposed to be in my area, really. It's just like, what are you even doing here?
Yeah.
We could jump you right now for just being in this room." Anyway, so he's stopping me and he's like, "Yo, you got to hear this joke." And I'm like, "This better be the best joke of my entire life," And I wake up in a pile of rubble at the back of the room, and I feel a burning in my stomach, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like they got me," And I remember my first thought was, how? Because all right, me being blown up by 5 IEDs in my platoon in my time, that's not like amazing, Yeah. I had a guy who was doing PI stuff on me, and for one of these podcasts I was on, and so I got my whole squad. We hopped on a Zoom meeting. We're like, "Hey guys," I'm like, "We got to talk about when I got blown up. Some guy out there doesn't believe me. He's got private eyes calling all you guys," and they're like, "Which time?" Like, what? Which time? Everyone in my platoon. One of the guys has like 8 to 10, IEDs under his belt. I watched him get launched like 60 yards. But anyways, I get distracted. Wow. So we're sitting here. I wake up. Long story short, I'm okay. But where that mortar landed, I would have been doing pull-ups, completely hanging from a pull-up bar.
Where it landed.
The mortar landed, and it blew up my entire gym.
Oh.
So I'm here by the grace of God.
Thank you, Jesus.
But in the case of the final explosion that I was in, this was 60 some odd pounds of homemade explosives that detonated directly underneath where I was sitting in the back of a 7-ton. And we're riding down the street, and I was having an exceptionally bad day that day and singing a little song to myself. And I remember, everything was good. Everything was cool. And I'm just kind of like singing this little song, like looking out the back. And I'd placed myself in the smartest place in the back of this truck where if we get blown up, it's probably going to hit the front 2 tires. We are going to get blown up because we're the lead vehicle. But more than likely, I was in the safest spot, sitting on top of a Gatorade water, big cooler in the back. I was the troop commander, so I was in charge of the whole squad back there. I believe it was 9 guys at that time, starts out at about 12. And we're rolling down the back of the street, and all of a sudden, I just am in a black room.
Whoa.
I think if I think really heavily, I think I can remember feeling like the pressure moving through my body, but That's about it. And my buddy who was sitting just like you across from me, we were cross covering each other. He says the last thing he saw was me on the roof, folded in half, with my feet up by my head, just like this, on folded up on the roof of the truck. Wow. And you know, I'm in this black room, and I'm perfectly fine. I'm not afraid. I'm actually at peace, and like I'm just so okay. Like you think like Pulp Fiction, you know that little meme where he's like kind of like looking around, like I'm just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of being like, "What's going on? Like where am I? What's going on?" And I'm kind of looking around in the darkness, and I remember thinking like I can call up my last thoughts. What was I doing? And all of a sudden, it was almost like a MS-DOS computer. I don't know if you remember those old with the green screen, the green cursors.
Yes.
And it was like, why is this water cooler, you know?
Right.
Why is this water cooler trying to, you know, come up my butt is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at, I was like, well, what? Oh, I was sitting on a water cooler. And then I started to recall what was going on. And I was like, I was sitting on a water cooler. I was in the middle of, I was on deployment. Oh, yeah, I was on Iraq. I was on a patrol. And then the deepest sorrow I've ever felt in my life just kind of exploded from my solar plexus and started to just engulf me in the realization that I'm dead. And I started to realize like, oh my gosh, like I'm dead, I died, oh my gosh. And so I start to experience this deep sorrow, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I failed. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is it. I'm 19 years old and I'm a pile of guts on the floor in Iraq somewhere, and like my life is over. And the finality of it was soul crushing. And the realization that at no point did I really become conscious of the gift of conscious life hadn't crossed my mind. And that's what was soul crushing. And then I started to see my family, and I started to see my mom and my dad, and I'm like seeing everyone, and I'm like, mom, I'm so sorry, dad, I'm so sorry. And my girlfriend and everyone, I'm like, sorry, I'm so sorry. And then I get to my grandma. And like during this time, I could kind of like, I like saw one of my buddies, Wellerman, and he was like looking down into where my body was underneath like in the undercarriage of the truck. And I'm like, you know, I get to my grandma, and my grandma used to always say, you know, I like to think I'm a pretty tough dude. You know, I just want to think I'm a tough dude. But this is like, it's straight up touched by an angel, man. It's like, and she used to say, Byron, she's an old Cherokee woman, Byron, if anything's ever stronger than you, you say Jesus, Jesus, Jesus by the third time, it'll go away. And the only thing I could do was just sit there, man. And I was just like, Jesus, 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 Jesus. And I started to pray. And I don't know if it was a vision or what, but I felt myself like kind of in the throne room before God. And I just said this prayer. I said, Father, I may never be everything you've called me to be. I may never be everything you've called me to be, but if you give me another chance, if you send me back, I promise you I will go so hard at life. I said, I'll go so ham at life. I was young, I was 19. Yes. But I said, I'll go so hard at life. And all of a sudden, I was back in my body, but I couldn't move. And then somewhere in there, I remember my dad got shot at point blank range with a shotgun when I was young. And I used to ask him, Dad, how did you not die? You know? And he was like, son, my dad's intense. He was like, son, he's like, when you give up, you die when you give up. He's like, I was fighting like heck. He got shot at point blank range. His belly button's on the other side of his stomach. He's got a wound this big where his guts came out. He's got a 4-inch hole in the back where the rounds went in. But he's like, you die when you die. He's like, you give up when you die. And I started to hear him. And when I got to my dad too, when I was apologizing to everyone for dying, I felt really bad because my dad, we got into a fight before I went to the Marine Corps. He dangled me off the balcony of a hotel room, and he said, you know, basically, you know, he was dangling me off the balcony, and I said, you know, he's like, why aren't you afraid? I just relaxed. And then he was like, why aren't you afraid? And I said, because either you're going to drop me off the balcony or I'm going to the Marine Corps. And he pulled me back up and he said, all right, you're a man now. He said, don't die. And so I was especially heartbroken when I was apologizing to him, when I was seeing my family members. And then I ended up back in my body, and I remember hearing my father saying, when you die when you give up. And I prayed and I said, Father, I can't move my body. I can't do this without my body. I need my body. And then all of a sudden it felt like how like you hear like a tank, like an Abrams tank. And I just felt my power come back into me. And it was just like this, like powering, like this powering up. And then I just exploded out of the undercarriage of that truck up into the back of the semi truck. And I remember thinking, like, I'm not going to die here. And I kicked the back of the ladder that was, like, jammed shut on us. There's smoke filling up the vehicle. And I ran to the edge of the 7-ton, which is like 6-7 feet off the ground. I'm full kit. And I remember looking down. And then I wake up again, and I'm out in the middle of a field on a knee, setting security for myself. And I realize my guys are still in the vehicle, and I yell at them, and I make them get out, and we start clearing. And the story gets a little longer after that, but
wow,
that was the
that
day.
Same event, you were walking.
Oh yeah. I suffered
God
a fractured
put your
elbow.
body back.
Oh yeah. Well, I
Brought
suffered
you back.
Yeah, he brought me back. Yeah, I suffered a fractured elbow and a really high end concussion, and yeah, we just did what we had to do the rest of the day by the grace of God. And that moment that was the moment that I was reborn.
Big day.
That was the moment that I think about every day. That's why I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I go to bed. As far as I'm concerned, like, dudes are trying to, like, get healed of PTSD. You know, we talk about chaos addiction, but for me, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence. The violent take it by force. I'm here for the violence. So if I went that hard for Uncle Sam, far be it from me to not go this hard for the kingdom of heaven. So we're building,
That's
man.
amazing. Wow. So I want to go for a few minutes to help people in their next step. And to get there, with everything you've seen of entrepreneurship, war, calling, you've seen a lot, like getting blown up so many times. So take me to help me with this. Like you're like you understand people, and you read people. You can tell what they're thinking, what they're doing, what move they're about to make. Tell me this: why do so many of us not take action on the dreams God put in our heart? And I mean the good guys.
Yeah.
The church guys, the spirit-filled, Jesus-loving, like full-on detailed prophetic dreams, support systems, community, couple of brothers, couple of sisters. You can do it. You're good. And we don't take action. And we don't send it. We don't
Get in the ring, man.
Yeah, what happened to us in this generation that makes that a thing? Why are there so many, like, business coaching seminars that, like, you run, I run, that, you know, in a variety of kind of similar ways? And we have ourselves experienced this at seasons of our life as maybe those with more life experience and more training. But what is this thing going on in this time in history that makes it like so makes someone conclude, I have every possible reason, Wi-Fi connection, ChatGPT on my phone, and
It's
we
the easiest
don't
time.
send it. We don't do it. Don't create a product, an offer to the marketplace. Don't do the book. Don't do the counseling. Don't do the coaching. Don't do the fitness. Don't do the meal plan. Don't do the, like, there's the number of opportunities to actually make money. There is no shortage. What's gone on in mankind?
Yeah, I love this question. It's the reason I got into psychology, because I had veterans that I was looking at. I was like, I love you. I want you to make it. Right. I've got arguably at least two dozen of you will kill yourself today. By the time we get home, you know, and that's just in the veteran community, you know, and that's why I wrote my book.
High level of suicide.
Yeah, the roughly 24 veterans a day commit suicide. Arguably, I believe the number's higher now, and that's just veterans, let alone men. Right? Men that are struggling and suffering and dying a soul death first. You know? Death. And so the answer to your question, let's see how I want to make my way to it in my opinion. The short answer is we don't know who we are because we don't know whose we are. Yeah. You know, we go back to the book of Genesis, you know, let's make man in our image and our likeness. 10 seconds later, it's let's give man dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and the stars of the sky. I mean, the realms, right? And so dominion follows image. And so God put inside of us a dream, a vision, and there's a message written on our heart. There's something that only we can do. And I'm trying to remember, I got this one from, it'll come back to me, but he talks about an apple seed. And the apple seed has a destiny from God. And you can take that apple seed and I can set it on this counter. And nothing happens. Decades, nothing happens. You take that apple seed, you put it in the right processes, you put it in the right environments, the sun, the water,
Yes.
the solitude, the death necessary, right? To the shell that once protected it, right? To the identity, to the elements of your identity that maybe got you to where you are, right? But have they become idols? Are you ready to rip them apart so that you can do what God's called you to do? Because if God asks you to do something right now, we're going to find out real quick who your God is. And it's going to, whether it's going to be your job, your 401k, your home, your all these little accoutrements that you prayed and asked God for, you know, lest you eat and are satisfied and you forget the Lord God. So here's the thing, you know, like God's put this dream inside your heart. You know, you give that apple seed the right things, it manifests this more than it ever could have imagined, this whole vineyard. But men now, people now, you know, when it comes to the mission of God, I believe everyone knows something. I believe that a lot of guys are just tormented inside with,
Yes.
man, this is what I was created. I would love, dude, I would love to. But they look at the dream God's given them and they, like David and Goliath, they sit there and they compare themselves to the destination and they say, I could never do that. Well, my friend, the answer to that question is very straightforward. It's not for you necessarily to do.
Yes.
It's for you to be willing to go on a journey with God and co-create with everything that I've done up into this point. I'm just a chubby little supposedly dyslexic kid from the Bahamas. Like the fact that I'm here operating at this level with a global organization, dropping teams anywhere in the world in within 24 hours, like the things that we've done, the school, all the different things. You're just a man who's supposed to go on a journey with God to manifest what he's placed in your heart, which is going to require an eternal series of deaths of who you think you are so that you can get to become who God foreordained and knew you were before the foundations of the world. The Bible talks about he knew you in your mother's womb when he predestined you. You're already glorified. You're already justified. You're already seated in heavenly places. And this journey, it is designed to help you, to consecrate you, to become more of who God's already destined you to be. You're quite literally sent here on this planet to give birth to a miracle from the kingdom of heaven that is supposed to now manifest here on this planet.
Right.
You can't do it by yourself. You can't do it by yourself. So you're right. I can't do it. You're right. You're not supposed to do it. So if you're out here and you're trying to manifest and birth into this reality, that thing that God put inside your heart without getting to know the mind of the creator who created you for such a time as this, one, you don't even have the maturity and the foresight to really know. The first thing that most guys are attracted to is just the most attractive thing based on their sphere of relationships, intelligence, studiedness, and experience. They don't even really know what God, you can't know from the bottom of the mountain what the top of the mountain looks like, let alone the 8 mountains you're supposed to climb while you're in here, while you're here on this planet anyway. You got no idea. You don't even, the mountain behind it that's so big you won't even look at it. That's like in the process to the next mountain type of mountain. So it's like when I listen to guys talk and I hear them shy away, when David is looking at Goliath, he's not saying, little me is going to kill Goliath. He knows that this man just spoke against God, Jehovah Sabaoth of heavenly hosts. He has no covenant. He's an uncircumcised Philistine. And through spiritual intelligence and spiritual maturity, he understands the real battlefield above the physical battlefield that everyone else is sitting there looking at and judging themselves against this giant who is just a speed bump. And so men sit there in their living rooms and they're sitting there like, well, I could never do that. My friend, that was never the plan, and that is not your purpose. Your purpose is to manifest the glory of God by being willing. So to make that practical in your life, how do you even get there to where when you see a struggle, you see challenge, you see adversity, and or you see a task and a mission, you don't compare it to yourself. You compare it to God in you, God who's with you. And so when I get a mission set from the kingdom of heaven, it's not, well, how am I going to be smart enough to do this? It's, I am going to get with God and I'm going to understand protocol 1. I gotta spend my 45 minutes to an hour with God. I gotta get in His presence. I gotta have Him teach me when to zig and when to zag. Faith comes by hearing, hearing with the Word of God. I gotta be in my Word, man. I need supernatural guidance to not die, to succeed, or to pull off this next mission that we're going on. I have to have that to operate organically the way God designed for me to operate in this world. I have to consecrate my business, give the divine portion of my business so He'll touch my business. Practically in my life, I tell guys, your priesthood must precede you have business success without God, it'll lead you to death. You have physical fitness without God, it'll lead you to death. Relational, every aspect of your life without God will lead you to death because you weren't even designed to thrive like this. And so I don't look at what God's called me to do and say whether Byron can do it. It's has God called me to it. And if I have that green light, I don't care if it's Goliath, I don't care if it's Godzilla, I don't care if it's the Leviathan. It's not on me. You know, it's on me to be faithful, obedient, and willing to go. And that's all God needs if you read any of the stories in the Bible. You know,
beautiful. Those who know their God will do exploits. So you've been around some pretty wealthy dudes.
Yeah, yes, sir.
How do some of those guys, you mentioned the word priesthood in what you just said. Beautiful. It's like such a central theme for Goshen, for our Goshenites, our community, is priesthood in business. So what have you seen among the ultra wealthy in how they do well to administer the priesthood, steward wealth with godliness? And what kind of moves do they make? How do they think as you talk with them and as you watch their lives? What are they doing that's different from worldly, self-centered, the secular mind? What are they doing, those wealthy, kingdom-minded guys?
You know, it's really interesting. I've been on the other side of it a lot more. I've been on the side of it where I've seen the troubles and struggles that come with wealth a lot. You know, keeping kids out of jail and away from addiction and away from things. The things that I've seen done well, you know, I'd really have to think about the things that I see that, you know, I've seen kids with a lot of structure. I've seen that's done well. I've seen them kept away from the world until their root systems are well planted. I would say that having a father who demonstrates the glory of God in such a way that makes the things of the world look cheap is extremely powerful. I think that there are very little, from what I've seen, there are very little substitutes to having a man sit in front of you who is your father, who demonstrates the glory of God in multiple dimensions, that you can go from your house and you can compare him to other men that you meet and you can say, my father is a better man. I think that if there was one unifying thing, I would say that that's the unifying and central thing in terms of the good things I've seen. You know, I hate that it's so simple, but its simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. You know, it's caused me to endeavor to be like, hey, I need to create, by the grace of God, a kingdom by which my children can measure me to the world, and then they can say, why would I listen to you? Because I've actually seen one of my sisters. You think I'm gonna go on a date with you because you got Jordans? She's like, I can't take you home. My father will eat you alive. He will kill you. You understand? You're like, how much money do you have in the bank? Have you saved money? Do you have a 401k? Do you have a business plan? You know? And so I would say if there was one unifying theme in the kids that are doing good, it's that their dad and or the empire that's been created around them makes everything the world offer pale in comparison.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're sat here. What floor are we on? 6th floor. So we've got a little bit of a view here of Orange County here,
Yes, sir.
in Southern California. I can see Wells Fargo. I don't know what that is next door. There's a gym down there, Lifetime or something. Oh yeah, let's not leak the location. Oh yeah,
Yeah, you're fine. You know, I know that door's not locked though.
You mentioned earlier pre-podcast some of my favorite conversation with you, by the way, before the cameras are rolling.
Always happens.
So There's so we have the I'm aware we have the illusion of safety here, and when you have not lived through war, my dad was 8 when he remembers bombs dropping on London and hiding under a big metal table they had in the kitchen when there wasn't time to run to the bunker.
Yeah.
But I haven't lived through war. You know, I've nearly lost my passport once and almost, panicked. And,
Right.
And I had left a pair of shoes on a flight. That was made me so sad. And, a couple other things. But you had mentioned, like, not if, but when there are scenarios that shut this down. What happens when somewhere that seems seemingly safe happens? What happens to humanity? What happens within 24 hours? What kinds of things do we need people to be aware of?
Yeah. If I was going to put something out for awareness in urban environments, first and foremost, it would be the reality that in the private sector, we've just been waiting for a few different types of attacks, right? We've been waiting for the big one that we really hope we never see is an attack on infrastructure, a blackout, an EMP, heaven forbid, which turns all electrical appliance into paperweights, for those who, listeners who are not caught up to that. A cyber attack.
And just on that, so we're all understanding, an EMP is an electromagnetic pulse that shuts off anything electrical.
Yes.
So we stop talking, we stop shipping, we stop many vehicles, lights off, communication off, no Wi-Fi, no scrolling on your Facebook, no.
We're taking the stairs down.
The stairs.
We're taking
in the dark.
actual stairs in the dark,
And the phone.
Yeah, batteries are jammed up, everything, right?
Right.
So now you're on your own. The EMP has been a big concern. Cyber attacks also, they can shut down infrastructure.
And might I add, like AWS that runs Amazon and other stuff. We see that with increasing frequency right now. Oh no, I can't order my toilet roll on thing. What am I gonna? Literally Amazon. It makes us kind of little twitchy.
A little wonky,
okay.
The big toilet paper run a couple years ago. That was great.
But how it's all connected. Remember, like I think that was a few weeks ago, wasn't it? Flights were just
Yep.
And Amazon all running on similar systems for 20 hours or something.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
and then the third one is the multi-stage attack that has been talked about from terrorist organizations. We were taking bets last year that it would happen in Q1. I mean, it's like one of those things we've been waiting for. We've got millions of unknowns that have flooded in through our border. Last administration, I'll happily make sure that I mention that they had a lot to do that because I know the boys on the border and what they had to deal with during that.
Yes.
But that's going to be multiple city centers getting hit simultaneously. Shooters very dynamic, and they're going to. And what is put out in the bulletin, the plans that we are aware of when this gets...
The bulletin?
Yeah, when and if this gets executed. Multiple federal agencies have put bulletins out about this.
Okay. So you get memos, bulletins on things most of us don't see, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Where you hear about plans and actual blueprints of things being put together for multiple shooters to be activated in multiple cities.
Yes. To wear uniforms so that they look like first responders and to attack hospitals during the attack.
Uniforms of okay, yes. Just
So
making sure we're all
we're on the same.
I'm in the zone.
This way, instead of hospitals.
I'm mostly intrigued and just a little bit scared to keep going. But let's go. Let's go.
So when instead of hospitals getting overwhelmed, the hospitals in those regions have been attacked already. Right.
They've been attacked.
So we're maximizing fatalities and things of that nature. Utter chaos, high quality terrorism. Right. So. These are considerations that the world's grappling with. They've put out bulletins. Every major city center in the United States is a candidate for those types of attacks. And so right now we're just in this time. So when I look at like geopolitical scenarios and the reality that we're at war and all these different things that are happening, these are great opportunities for something like this to happen. We have millions, I've heard heard accounts of 10 million. I've heard 20 million, you know, of undocumented people inside the United States, as well as many of them known individuals on terrorist watch lists that are here. Now, this is before the reality of our own homegrown terrorists, and this is before considering the reality that the cartels have been here for decades. So the biggest threat to the United States is like an insurgency scenario where the enemies are not wearing uniforms. They look just like me or you, and they're doing what we had to fight against in Iraq and different other countries. Now, America's great and very patriotic, so it'll be a little bit more difficult. But if you find yourself in a city center like this, most reports say that you need to get out of cities. You need to get out of highly populated areas as quickly as possible. You need to have a go, no, go criteria. You need to know, are you bugging out? Or are you going to go firm and bug in? And you need to develop this prior to the event itself, so that you can execute on that plan the second you see major incident. That's my go criteria or no go criteria. But these are the tripwires that spark the next response that I have pre-planned and that I have provisions for. If I need to get out of the city on foot, how am I going to do that? And so we now get into emergency management planning. And what we do for our clients is we have an emergency management plan for all their estates and their houses and their pattern of life. And then we have a CAT EMP, which is a catastrophic emergency management plan. And this is how we're going to round up the family and get everyone to a safe location. And as a civilian, you need to develop this for your family, because a major city center like this is going to become a death trap. Most studies say roughly 80% casualties, and you're looking at that stuff to start happening.
80% casualties.
Yes.
Because we're killing each other.
Yes. So what I would do, and what most of them models say, I think the smartest thing to do, it's been said that there's a rifle behind every blade of grass in the United States. You can't really, with a mechanized ground force, you cannot really come into the United States and take over. I've had to do this before. A couple guys in a house with a few AKs are going to really slow you down. You know what I mean? You got to blow the house up. You got to do all these things. That's not going to happen with a mechanized ground unit to the United States. And everyone's all about it, gun enthusiasts. It's a problem. So what you do is there's an event that impacts infrastructure that makes people desperate.
Yes.
And then you let them cannibalize themselves. And then once the public is low on ammo, they're eating each other, they're taking things from each other, killing each other, food supplies. Most Americans are going to not make it very far because they're just not even in this mind space. Then you come in with the Hegelian dialectic of solution to the problem that you started.
Hegelian dialectic.
Yeah, this is the ancient, I think it's a Greek war game philosophy of I create a problem that I already have a solution for. You know, I run a car mirror business. Would you like to buy a mirror for your car? You're like, I got a mirror on my car. I got mirrors on my car. And you're like, okay, cool. Tomorrow morning you wake up, the mirrors are missing off your car. I come back, hey, would you like to buy mirror for your car? You're like, I understand. So. God rest your soul, Costi. But these types of environments, what's going to increase your survivability is having a plan in place prior to the event. I'm going to bug in. I have at least 90 days to 6 months of XYZ, water, food. It's very hard. Water's a hard one to hold on to. Water, food, electricity. I have my things in Faraday bags that are going to power my life. I have standalone AI models in Faraday bags, as well as communication devices, as well as power generated mechanisms that I can crank or I can get solar with. All of these things pre-packaged and pre-positioned. I can tape off all my windows, these types of things. It's a training that we run for people to help them, a 72-hour deep dive.
That's awesome.
And so that's the way you have to be thinking prior to the event in order to increase your survivability. We have EMP protectors on our vehicles so that if something happens, we stand a chance. However, a military-grade EMP is going to come with a number of different pulses to make sure that it burns through all the EMPs.
Wow.
So you have to really think through the equation. This is something that we train and specialize in. And for the average lay civilian, I always say this: improve your plan, improve your position, improve your network, pray, and buy bullets, right? So the ultimate currency on the planet is human capital. this is what heaven and hell are both fighting over. When God wants to get something done, he sends a man. Right.
Human capital. This is what
100%.
heaven and hell fighting over. Straight out of Revelation 18.
Let's go.
Go there.
Yeah, we were doing a CAT EMP plan for an ultra high net worth family, bunker, all the things,
They got a
weapons,
bunker?
ammo, all of it. You can imagine it. And we're sitting there doing the final exit consultation, and the wife got smart, and she's like, so after we survive if we survive the event and if we get to our bunker and everything happens and we come out, she's like, then what do we do?
Yeah.
And I leaned over the table and I said, you start a gang. You start a gang, because the number one capital form of power in this world is having manpower. Capable men bound together by a unified vision that are going to act on your behalf. And you pray that you're strong enough to lead them. And this is where the husband's like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, yeah, buddy. We're going to find out the measure of man you are. Because on that day, you might find yourself in a situation like in the Captain movie. Look at me. I am the captain now. Yeah, but anyway, so this is what heaven and hell fights over, and it's the ultimate currency. How many men can I organize and get a unified vision and execute? So improve your plan. Your emergency management plan. Look at your home, look at your position. Do you have a bug out location, or are you just going to have to bug in? Improve your position. Like, how can I fortify my home? How can I get the right gear? How can I get everything? Improve your network. Who do I know? Churches, decided advantage. You've got a platoon to a battalion-sized force unified behind a vision for the glory of the kingdom of heaven. So one thing we're super passionate about is teaching pastors how, good Lord, okay, fine. Let's all meet up at the church. Yeah. Let's all meet up at the church. We already have a government, okay? Let's get organized here. Yes. Let's be a lighthouse during a time when the world's going to need us the most. Can you imagine the harvest, the souls, when people can come to a church that's fortified with strong men, secure, and has provisions in place? Welcome to the kingdom of heaven on earth, ladies and gentlemen, right?
Yes.
And now we're gonna welcome these new men into the kingdom, into the mission, and we will develop a standing army in that environment that will instill order, and everything will thrive, right?
We need that plan.
Praying Bibles. Let's go.
I love it that you're doing security.
Let's go.
But we need to rally the men to hear this.
Yes, sir.
We have a men's gathering coming up on the 21st.
Hey, if I'm here, I'm there. If I'm in the
we'll check schedules here in a little bit. It would be amazing for the men to hear more on mental fortitude and the nervous system you shared earlier, and also kingdom of heaven on earth as men. What does this mean in terms of banding together when there's an event?
Right.
Either locally, like church gathering, or more regionally, how we serve, how we survive. That's man stuff there.
That's man stuff, man. Yeah, this is when we shine, thrive. It's what we're created for. Bringing order to chaos, going out into the dark, bringing order into chaos, God pushing us out to do his will, to establish things that are not established in enemy territory. I mean, I remember when I was really coming to get serious about becoming, like a real son of God, getting out of the Marine Corps. And I remember having these conversations with God. Now, God's really saved my life. I heard God when I was 4 during an assassination attempt on my father in the Bahamas for the first time. And, so I've been walking with God. Like, we've been kicking it. But I remember getting out of the Marine Corps, and I remember being like, Father, how am I going to live like these guys? Like these white picket fence nice dudes with good credit scores. I'm like, there's no way. I feel like a Lamborghini trying to drive in a school zone, 25 for the rest of my life. Like, I get veterans killing themselves because you sit here and you live at this intense, alive, intense version of life, and then you get back here in the civilian sector, and you feel like a T-Rex that's being forced to be a vegetarian for the rest of your entire natural life. And I remember being like, Father, I don't know if I can do one female forever. No intensity ever again. I got to be nice to people. I have to I have a civilian tell me about their feelings today. They were telling me about their actual they have feelings. I'm like a warlord that's trying to behave, and I got to sit here and act like this person in charge of me has feelings and it matters. So I remember, having these conversations with God. I remember my mom trying to match me up with these elders in the church. My dad, like I told you, he's extremely intense, and I remember being like, yeah, Pastor, whatever, Elder Jeff seems like a nice guy, but I can't follow this man. I don't even know if I'd want him with me in a bar fight. Like, masculinity, a lot of it has to do with performance. I remember looking at her and looking at my dad and looking at these guys I'm supposed to look up to. And I remember being like, how am I supposed to, this isn't masculine. This isn't, and I always knew I was a warrior. And the one thing I would say to any listeners that have that anointing, because we all have different roles, right? This isn't the masculine role. This is my path. I would tell you that there is no greater adventure. There is nothing that'll be scarier, more intense, will require more depth and development than going on the journey that God has for you, if you're even man enough to give up your idols. When I was a boy, I thought as a boy, I talked as a boy. When I became a man, I put away childish things. If you're even man enough to give up your idols and step into what God's called you to do by getting to know him, you can go to the gym, you can count your macros, but can you sit there and press in and worship God in the morning? Thank God. Can you get in his presence? Can you read and try to understand him and seek his face? Seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, so all these things can be added. There's no better way to live. There's nothing. I couldn't have imagined where I'm being in video games and getting knighted. Come on. I'm not that good. God is.
What is getting knighted as a Knight of Malta?
Yeah, so Knights of Malta, second oldest chivalric order, other than the Knights Templar. The smallest nation in the Geneva Convention, primarily focused on, they used to call them the Hospitalia, and they would focus on medicine and protecting hospitals. And then they turned into a military order as well. So it's kind of like one hand to heal, one hand to kill. Defend, protect. Sounds better. So the Knights of Malta, right now what they're focusing on is humanitarian operations around the world in 120 countries. And me being a private security professional and operating globally for, at least a decade of that, really starting off globally 20 years ago, creating security infrastructure that can complement those efforts.
Yes.
And it is a meritorious award. And so I was grafted in meritoriously for those things.
Wonderful.
And one of the greatest honors. Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't have wrote it. It's the grace of God. These are the unintended consequences of going after what God's called you to go after.
Yes.
I didn't reach out to them. I was just being about my Father's business.
Yes.
Didn't you know I needed to be about my Father's
Yes,
business?
there
I was
you
just
go.
being about my Father's business. And then, hey,
These things come to
and they
you.
reach out to you. And it's like, wow. Couldn't have
Were
wrote
you
that
pulling
story.
people out of Mexico just a few weeks ago with the cartel thing?
Yeah, we're getting some folks out.
Okay.
Got some folks out by the grace of God. Working on getting folks out of Dubai and Kuwait as well. So these last
How
couple
many
weeks,
teams you got deployed?
I have a network, right? So
see.
I have a network, and I've known these guys because I've been traveling the world for the span of my career, and so it's kind of one of those awesome scenarios where someone's like help me understand your capabilities, and I'm like, well, it's kind of like give me your equations and we will solve them with our capabilities. So far, I haven't really found an equation that I haven't been able to, by the grace of God, solve.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
I
we've
remember
dropped.
talking to you when my mother and father-in-law were in Palachaki prison in Afghanistan.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And your
Yes, sir.
response was like, give me more information. We'll find a way.
Well,
it
yeah.
wasn't like, do we have enough helicopters?
Yeah,
Thank
no.
God they're out. Did you, so human trafficking, have you been, you did something in Israel, free, was that kids you were freeing, or was that right? Or what have you done?
Yeah, no, I can talk about that one. Israel, we went on an operation to help assist the Druze and the Christians in Syria that were being, one would say, exterminated. And so we went in, and this was a God mission. The client called and gave us the context to the situation and the scenario. And I went in with one of my business partners, Steve Slepcevic. Awesome man.
30 years disaster relief space. He's been on every major wide area disaster in the last 30 years. The guy knows how to solve. You want to talk about solve problems? So he'll bring in the power. He'll build a city in a city. Bring in the power. Bring in the fire.
Build a
private
city
fire.
in a city. Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
I'm
You
gonna
know,
come back to
something, the
this.
Jamaica scenario, the storm hits Jamaica, infrastructure's down, everything's down. He'll bring a city in. He'll bring enough power, satellites, Starlinks, water, shrink wrap the roof on the hospital, so that they can get up and running and lower the casualties, right? So I own multiple security companies. One of them I own with Steve. And so we go on operations like this. And we get the call, hey, Christians are being persecuted in Syria, deep in Syria, and the Druze are up there with them fighting. We're going to go into Israel. We're going to see how we can help and see what we can do. All right. When are we leaving? Tomorrow morning. Whose car are we taking? That's literally the conversation. And so we went up there, and by the grace of God, we were able to collect enough information, evidence, and testimonies to be able to have conversations with members of the U.S. Israel was helping, as well as help influence some meetings with the other side as well, to get the humanitarian corridor in there.
I see.
Wide, positively impacted, so that more supplies could get back there. That was the mission, and it was the grace of God. I mean, great. U.S. delegation just happened to be on ground.
Okay.
And we just happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right. We just knew where we're going, right? And I will also say about that mission, it was successful, and as far as I could take it tactically.
Yes.
But there's an element of that mission where there were, once again, financial limitations that caused people to suffer that didn't need to suffer. And I wasn't able to do as much as I could have done based on my tactical capabilities in terms of getting the medical aid that I wanted to get in. I spun up a HEAL operation within 6 hours to get people provisions, supplies. And because the way that the support was moving for that operation, it's one of those things where I wasn't able to be as successful as I could have been if people's hearts were in the right places concerning.
Yes.
And if we didn't have the right signatures and things like this.
Yes.
So that's a big thing that bothers me with a lot of these missions, is the bureaucracy around it. None of it was government related. I'm not saying anything like that, but this is another reason why now when I do high risk missionary work, I do it under my brand, by the grace of God, and I make the decisions, because I am not going to leave people's well-being in the hands of other people who I don't know their level of spiritual maturity makes you a spiritual liability.
Yes.
I won't go on another mission where I don't have those controls.
So you coach your students. What's the probably most weighty or most common piece of advice for students that are building their businesses that you give to students? Is it mindset? Is it tactics? What do you find that regular bit of advice that's just so regularly, people are most hungry for, or is most applicable?
I would leverage off of my last answer, and I would say this is also true of you who are in business that are not playing high stakes games in tactical environments. If you have a business partner, or if you have stakeholders in your business and you have competing priorities, and if you're there trying to do what God's going to ask you to do, and you have another decision maker that maybe doesn't have that same level of spiritual maturity, you're going to run into conflicts based on the reality that God's not going to ask you to do reasonable things. Your measure of faith is here, their measure of faith is there. And so, you're going to be you need practical people, but as a visionary, I've always found constraints where I'm like, with God, I can do everything. I can scale a wall. I can destroy anything that's in my way, but if I have other people on the board that have authority, I have to move at their pace when it comes to risk tolerance and reasonability and all these things. And I'm like, God told me to go. That's all that matters. You guys figure out the details. So consider this when it comes to business. And I don't like personally believe too much in partnerships. I think things look a lot the way that I see the kingdom of heaven working. God sends a man, God, man, organization, you know, or woman, whatever it is. But, you know, you run your race, you pray about it. But your question was, again, what do I see?
What's the biggest piece of advice you give to people building a business?
Well, if the house, you know, like, I don't want to be a builder laboring in vain, man. I mean, I want to say some like super sophisticated practical thing, but like the reality, I don't actually want to say that. But the reality for me is like, if I'm going to build a business and I'm going to die a million times and I'm going to have to upgrade my marketing capability, my ability to watch the numbers, my business acumen, my pitch deck, my proposal writing, my leadership skills. If I'm going to go ahead and look at a suite of 12 skills that I have to have some level of competence and mastery in, and I'm going to go on that journey to be able to master that so I can competently lead from the front in these areas. Not to be a technician, but to be able to speak with some authority to every area of the business and know when I'm hiring the right people. Like, I just want to know that I'm not laboring in vain or building the Tower of Babel.
Right.
And so the foundations of this thing. And I would also say that it's even more important, maybe, because I see, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I see one central command in the Bible probably more than many others, which is fear not. Don't be a coward.
Yes.
Right. And God hates cowards. And I hate what God hates.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and so this isn't a reason not to go into business. I would tell you that faith without works is dead, and it's impossible to please the Father without faith. So get to work, put your hand to the plow, and more than likely God's going to meet you on the way.
That's
so get
good advice.
to work. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to know the exact plan. You know, all this other stuff they try to tell you, you know. No, like, I think this is what God wants me to do. I'm going to start working. You know, like that is,
That's it.
I have outperformed so many people that are so much smarter than me by just being the guy who's like, I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to put in work and I'm just going to go, you know, and
get on with it.
I'm just going to
That's
go,
great.
man. And God meets me on the way. And so,
Are you managing things in your business, or are you at a level of leadership and other people are managing?
I'd say leadership and other people are managing. When something comes in the door and it's sensitive and we need to establish a relationship with the client as Bravo, as my company, like, that's when my hands are in the pot. And then at the appropriate time, then I hand it over to one of my directors or assist project managers, and then they carry the flag, and then I just kind of like continue moving and building the organization. We just dropped some awesome capabilities I'm super stoked about. Yes, sir.
That's so cool.
So yeah, but I've come up in the business, and I've come up in from being the agent on the ground, chasing the pager into, you know, and the whole thing's a miracle. You know, I got into the industry because I was getting out of the Marine Corps and I was afraid and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was a veteran, and I prayed, and God said, go to this bar, become a bouncer. You're going to travel. I'll make you a bodyguard. You're going to travel the world. It's one of the 4 times I ever heard God's voice. And I get up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what's going to happen. You know, my girlfriend says, why are you so happy? And I'm like, and she was like a new Christian, kind of trying to be a Christian at the time. And I said, I got to go become I know what's going to happen. I got to go be a bouncer. God's going to make me a bodyguard. I'm going to travel the world. And she's like, you can't go be a bouncer. We're not doing that. And I'm like, and I said the most Jesus-y thing I've ever said in my life. I said, I'm so proud of this. This is probably this is the best of Byron right here. I was like, I know this voice. This voice has kept me alive my entire life. All I ask is that when it happens the way that I've said it's going to happen, is that you believe. And 3 months later, random, not so random guy calls me over, asks me a few questions, says, I'm going to show you how to make a lot more money doing what you're doing. That is how I got into this industry recruited onto a team that was traveling more than the President of the United States and the Secret Service in my very first year at 21, which is too young. So getting recruited from flag football into the NFL, right? So can't take, I mean, supernatural growth. This is what I'm talking about, obedience, you know? And so then when it came to getting my company, one of our ultra high net worth families just said, I actually quit this detail, left. A year later, they came back and said, Byron, we've been having problems with multiple vendors. We love you. We like you. We want to make you into a business. Pick a company name. And I'm just being faithful.
This ultra high net worth family said this.
Yeah, and I'm just over here building the security program for Great Glory Harvest. That's a public facing client, So I built that program, back in the day. But I sit here and I watch the way my life has taken these quantum leaps. By the grace of God.
Leaps.
Yeah. And it's by the grace of God every time. And it's so beautiful because then I don't have to strive to maintain it. I don't have to strive to believe that, it's my effort. It's my obedience. It's just obedience. He's telling me when to zig and zag. So coming up at every level in the business, chasing the pager, doing domestic security contract, doing contracting for 7 different companies simultaneously, learning how it feels to be the employee, learning how it feels to chase the pager, learning how it feels to develop every aspect is giving me a massive advantage to speak to all of it by the grace of God. And now, I'm focusing on where Bravo's going, and being a Christian organization and making sure that every system demonstrates the glory of the kingdom of heaven. And that I'm stewarding these little compartments well.
How do you and your wife stay on the same page? Because you have a wife that knows you're in high risk.
Yes.
In different parts of the world, maybe out of contact. Husbands and wives have to stay on the same page. I've been married long enough to know this.
Yes.
It's work. And she must, and I've met her, I've observed both of you guys a little bit, but she must be really strong. But how do you stay on the same page?
This is awesome, and this is a good question, and I actually, a lot of guys getting into our industry ask this question, I think the first thing is the casting of vision. And what I would say about her first and foremost too is I would say that the 2 biggest force multipliers in life, the Holy Spirit, your paraclete, and your wife, when she gets on the same page and she can run with you and she's got the vision. No one will protect you like your wife. No one will run things as if they're their own like your wife. In my experience, you pray about it, but this is what I have seen, right? And so, from the beginning, casting vision. This is who I am. This is what I believe God's called me to do. This is the mission and the kingdom that you're being given an opportunity to support and operate within. A house rightly ordered. This is a big deal. God's God, I'm king, she's queen. Equal in glory, different in function. We play our positions to the glory of God. We aim to manifest the triune being of the Godhead, and me as the execution arm, as her as the helper, as God the Father, above everything. And so that's really how it works. If I tell her God's called me to go on this mission, the last time I got a call, it was like, hey, this is a mission. I can't get any other special forces guys to go on. Contact's imminent. Some would call this a suicide mission, but we have to protect these children that are behind enemy lines. And there's a unfriendly force that has been destroying orphanages on their way to their position. They're 1 city over. These types of things going on.
Wow.
And I get that call and I look up at the heavens and I say, Father, I look at my house, I got my 13 acres and my beautiful family and all the things, and I say, this doesn't suck. I don't need to do this. Do I need to go? And he says, what you carry is necessary for the success of this mission. You must go.
Yes.
And in this moment, you understand that if I don't go, it means that these things are my idol, right? Yeah. And so then you go in and I say, darling, I believe, I know that this is what God wants me to do. Yeah. And I've been blessed with a woman who has a heart that all she wants for us is what God wants for us. And that has been supported and really established by her watching, by the grace of God. I only say this because I believe it'll serve men. Watching over years, we've been married 15 years, a man sit there and be like, I just believe this is what God wants me to do. And then her being around it long enough to see the fruit of that. Yes. And see the fruit of it again. And see the fruit of it again. Yep. And to where she's like, when he says that, I know exactly what to do. Yes. And so we stay on the same page when it comes to those sacrifices and what we lean into that way. Yes. And then, you know, she runs so much of our back office like
with the grace of God,
That's
I'm so proud
our
of her.
team.
She always would come to me and be like, when are you gonna, like, I see these guys on stage that are like, I couldn't do it without my wife, and I'm like, well, I still can. Like, I'm that guy. When you earn that rank, I will tell you, but I will love you enough not to tell you that you've earned it before you've earned it. And so there was a period of our life when I was like, well, once we get to that level, my love, I'll let you know. And she's just like, but what does this do? It makes it so that when we're at this level, it's so much more sweet because she knows she's really rightly earned it. And so now when I say that, we both laugh because I'm like, there's no way I could do this without you. There's no way I could be where I am, and we could be executing and projecting power globally without. And then you think about my friends. No. I believe that this is maybe one of the grand designs of how when God gave man, he gave Adam a mission, then he gave him a helper, and he said it's not good, and so
Yes.
it's something that I'm very proud of and feel very blessed. But I will also say this. You're asking me, and people are seeing fruit. There's a journey behind that fruit. From subterranean all the way up to the fruit.
No
Seed
doubt.
time and harvest.
No doubt.
This was a path.
Yes.
This was a path
No shortcuts.
where, as a man, you have to be grounded in God. You have to get your identity from God. And you have to be willing to stand and say, this is what God's called me to do no matter what. I think a lot of men right now in the culture of our world have been hijacked by wife worship. I think if a lot of men had the conversation God had with Abraham and said, go east, they'd go inside the tent, they'd ask their wife, and it'd get shut down right there. And so I feel like, because wives need stability. They need leadership.
Yes.
Go east where, bro? Okay? Like, what I mean? You're asking me if you could buy a vacuum cleaner last week. Now you're telling me we're going to go east? You know what I mean? And so I think that really finding your validation, finding your identity, finding the things that make you feel like a man, rightly ordered, a man coming from God first and foremost, while the beloved people that you're called to steward do what people do. They struggle and grapple with their own relationships with God, and sometimes they're spirit led and they're a gift. Sometimes, Peter, who do you say that I am?
Yes.
The Spirit of God has revealed this to you. Good job. You're awesome. Yes. 10 seconds later, get thee behind me. You don't have the things of my Father in mind. Right. People are people, and they oscillate. And so something for the men is understanding that your responsibility is to know your power source, that you're responsible. Wash your wife with the word so you can present her blameless, so you can present her. You're homie, I've been in the military. Anytime an authority asks me to present something, Byron, bring me your rifle. Corporal Rogers, bring me your rifle. This inspection is going to have to do with my stewardship now. So this is a scary verse, guys. Like, it's not just designed to give you authority in the home, but homie, Byron, bring me your wife. And I'm going to judge you based on her level of development and the fruit I see in her life. And so, I always tell guys, man, like, it's not an easy path in today's world. Growing up in what we all grow in, both male and female, both of us being targeted by so much social engineering designed to destroy us. But if your heart's piloted by God alone, that person who may not believe in the beginning, when they see the fruit of your labor and they see the fruit of God in your life, and they see Christ in you through you, and they eventually come to the realization that this man's been sacrificing himself and dying to do what Christ called him to do, that submitting to this man is basically the same thing as submitting to God, because he's dead already and he stays dead. Then when you seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, being in right standing with it, all these things, man, they get added.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
It's an honor.
Wow.
It's an honor.
God's
good.
Done a deep, beautiful work in your life. So much of the character of God seen in you.
That's a massive compliment. Thank you, sir.
I want to thank each of you for joining us tonight. I hope this presentation gave you something to think about. One point that I found really interesting is we need to create a parallel community that is what we're doing at BDM. One of the biggest lessons we can take away is that challenges are not always a sign that we're on the wrong path. Sometimes they are evidence that we're being prepared for something greater. When we look at the lives of the most successful people, whether in business, ministry, leadership, or life, we often see a common pattern. Before the breakthrough came the struggle. Before the promotion came the preparation. Before the harvest came the season of planting. The truth is that none of us enjoys difficult seasons. But if we can learn to see them as opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more faithful, then even our setbacks can become stepping stones. As we continue building BDM together, I encourage each of you to stay focused on your vision, keep moving forward, and remember that your current circumstances do not determine your future. Your future is being shaped by the choices you make today. The greatest victories often belong to those who simply refuse to quit. Thank you for being part of our BDM family. We appreciate every one of you and look forward to building something meaningful together. Let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together tonight. We thank you for the lessons we have learned, the wisdom we've gained, and the opportunity to grow through both our victories and our challenges. Lord, help us to trust you even when we cannot see the whole path ahead. Give us the faith to keep moving forward when times are difficult, the courage to stand when others give up, and the wisdom to recognize the opportunities hidden within our struggles. Strengthen each member of this community, bless their families, their health, their finances, and their relationships. Help them discover their purpose and walk confidently in the gifts and talents you have placed within them. May we learn to serve others with integrity, generosity, and love. May we build our lives upon principles that honor you and create blessings for those around us. We ask for your protection, your guidance, your favor in the days ahead. Open doors that no one can close. Give us clarity where there is confusion, peace where there is worry, and hope where there is uncertainty. Above all, help us become the people you created us to be. We thank you for your goodness, your mercy, and your faithfulness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Again, thank you for being here tonight. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you at our next event.